Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm State Representative JoCasta Zamarripa, and I am proud to be joined by State Representative Mark Spreitzer, State Representative Lisa Subek, and State Representative Melissa Sargent to discuss Friday's historic ruling by the United States Supreme Court that has once and for all ushered in marriage equality nationwide. With this landmark decision, same-sex couples will now enjoy the freedom to marry the person they love the most, enjoy the broad benefits of marriage, and spend the rest of their lives knowing this issue has finally been put to bed. I want to begin by applauding the Supreme Court in arriving at this decision and ensuring LGBT Americans have equal freedom and opportunity under the law. It is truly an historic moment for the LGBT community and our allies. As my colleague, Senator Tim Carpenter, said on Friday, the court's ruling, quote, recognized that government should not erect barriers in front of two people who are willing to undertake the rights and responsibilities of the ultimate expression of love and commitment, marriage. Those words, freedom and equality, are two words that have been denied to our LGBT communities until Friday's ruling. And once again, I am beaming with happiness and pride as a result of the court's decision. I want to hand it off to Representative Spreitzer to share his comments around the decision as well, and then we'll talk about our bill.
Good afternoon. I'm State Representative Mark Spreitzer, and I'm so pleased to be here in response to Friday's ruling. It truly is one of those rulings that will go down in the history books of creating more equality for people in this country. And I think it's really important to emphasize that the Supreme Court recognized what the majority of Americans and the majority of Wisconsinites already knew, which is that marriage is a fundamental right regardless of sexual orientation. And we know that from looking at recent polls that show that 60% of Americans support marriage equality and 63% of Wisconsinites support marriage equality. The Supreme Court is on the right side of the history and is following where the people have already come to. It's also important to recognize that this ruling is about family, and the Supreme Court recognized the importance of family, including families headed by same-sex couples, and the children that they're raising together, and that this ruling guarantees that in all 50 states, couples will have the right to visit a spouse in the hospital, make health care decisions for their spouse, share health insurance and other benefits, inherit property if one of the spouses passes away, and have both parents legally recognized in caring for their children. Those are critical rights that most American couples already enjoyed, and now we know that same-sex couples will enjoy those rights in all 50 states. It's also important that even though we've had marriage equality for a little bit now here in Wisconsin, Wisconsin couples who get married can now travel or move to any other state in the country and know that their marriage will be recognized. This is a critical decision that will have a positive impact on so many Wisconsin families and so many American families, and I'm absolutely thrilled that the court recognized this fundamental right.
So I also want to briefly touch on legislation that both Representative Spreitzer and I and Senator Tim Carpenter have put out for co-sponsorship that would begin the process of removing the discriminatory language around banning same-sex marriage, which continues to tarnish our state's constitution. In 2006, I worked as an organizer for Fair Wisconsin. We fought to defeat the ban on marriage equality in our great state. And I know Representative Spreitzer also worked hard on this campaign in his corner of Wisconsin, along with our allies. It was a huge blow to us as LGBT Wisconsinites when we were defeated at the ballot box that cold November night in 2006. I will never forget that moment. But finally, victory is ours, and with this bill, we want to ensure that our beloved state of Wisconsin is on the right side of history by physically removing this discriminatory language from our Constitution. And I know Representative Spreitzer wants to add to this.
The campaign in 2006 to try to keep this amendment from becoming part of our state constitution was really one of my foundational moments, both as a gay American and also as somebody getting involved in politics. I was a student in college at Beloit College, and was an intern with the campaign to fight this amendment and went door to door in my community and communities around Beloit like Evansville and Janesville, asking voters to please not put this into our Constitution. Unfortunately, that didn't work. We weren't ready at the time, but public opinion has changed dramatically, and we know that a majority of Wisconsinites now would be prepared to remove this amendment from our Constitution. And I think it's critical that we do that, because if we leave this in place, even though this language is not enforceable as a matter of law, it would really be an embarrassment to the state of Wisconsin if this discriminatory language continued to be part of our state constitution, which is really a statement of our values going forward. So we need the legislature to give the voters the opportunity to undo what they did in 2006, to recognize that voters have changed their minds, and to remove this language from our Constitution. And that's something this bill would give people the opportunity to do. It's something we certainly hope will get bipartisan support in advancing. And I also wanted to comment on the subject of amendments, the fact that Governor Walker on Friday, unfortunately, proposed a federal constitutional amendment that would really take us in the exact wrong direction and is contrary to where public opinion has moved on this issue. He's proposed an amendment to our federal constitution that would allow states to re-ban marriage equality and re-implement discrimination that the Supreme Court has struck down. That idea is totally out of touch with Wisconsin and with where the majority of Americans are, and we need to move on and embrace equal rights and not go backwards by trying to write discrimination into our federal constitution. So that amendment is not going to pass, and I hope we can move on from that conversation. We'll take any questions.
What about the legislation that's been looked at as far as getting rid of the domestic partnership registry? Is that necessary to do as well, since this would essentially reinstate that?
Sure. Repeal the domestic partner registry is certainly a conversation that we can have and that's worth having going forward. But I don't think we should be jumping into any quick reactions to this. There are couples that are on that registry that we need to make sure are protected, and I don't think it should be rushed through in the budget, as I understand was proposed, but it's certainly a conversation that I'm happy to sit down with Representative Thiesfeld and have, and I think it's something that we should be exploring. But we also need to explore, that's not the only thing that we need to do or look at to implement marriage equality in Wisconsin. There are other things that we need to be looking at in our state laws, as basic as the definition of husband and wife and changing that to, say, spouses. So I think there's a broader conversation that we should have here in the days ahead, and I look forward to having that conversation.
How much language do you think there is in our state laws that includes gender-specific mentions when it comes to marriage?
There are quite a few gender-specific references to marriage, and I think it's something we want to take a careful look at and make sure that if we're going to make those changes that we get everything that needs to be changed and take the time to do it right.
And what would it take to change the Constitution?
To change the Constitution would be a matter of passing our bill in this legislative session and then again in the next legislative session that would start in 2017. And at that point, it would go before the voters either in 2017 or 2018. And then once the voters approve it, it would be removed from the Constitution.
And if I could just add on Representative Thiesfeld's sentiments around the domestic partnership registry, I agree with Representative Spreitzer. There's no need to rush it in the budget. We know already there's much infighting on the Republican side on the budget, so let's not rush it. This could be truly a bipartisan effort, this discussion around the domestic partnership registry, but we need to make sure it's done right. So let's take our time. I would love an opportunity to talk further with Representative Thiesfeld around working on this in a bipartisan way.
I was going to ask a question about what we saw today from the Republicans regarding the prevailing wage reform to make 60% of the prevailing wage exempt, 60% is exempt. I wonder if any of you have any comments on what you saw.
Sure. I'm incredibly disappointed about the plan that the Speaker introduced today around prevailing wage from the Assembly Republican side. Our current prevailing wage law works for businesses, it works for the workers of our state, and quite frankly it works for the public because it helps to ensure the quality of the projects that we are bringing forth, and it helps to ensure that that money stays in the state by paying Wisconsin workers to do that work. I think this being brought forth right now to distract again, as they have with so many of these core issues, distract from the mess of a state budget. And instead of focusing on driving wages down, which is what we see them doing, we should be focusing on creating educational and economic opportunity for all of our hardworking families in this state. And I think that's what we here are committed to doing. And I hope we will see some cooperation from Republicans, and I hope they will consider abandoning their plan to decimate the prevailing wage law.
Does tomorrow's deadline mean anything, giving the business of the state of Wisconsin will advance?
So just on prevailing wage, I want to point out, although I absolutely agree with Representative Subeck, but Democrats are working on trying to increase wages. Republicans just want to lower them. And so I didn't get to watch Representative Voss's press conference today, so I look forward to reviewing that. But again, this continued debate over the Republicans' desire to lower the wages of Wisconsin workers is very concerning to Democrats.
So what do you think it would mean if Speaker Voss said today that it would be an option for Assembly members on the Finance Committee to go in themselves and pass a budget? Representative Nygren said they think they have the votes that they could pass a budget. What would happen? What do you think that would mean in your mind if the Assembly sort of went it alone?
So I want to keep this press conference focused on the important issue of equality for LGBT Americans. But again, I have not reviewed Representative Voss's comments. Democrats are focused on jobs, are focused on increasing wages for our middle-class families in Wisconsin, and we'll continue to fight for our working families, for our middle-class families, and hope that the infighting amongst the Republicans on this budget comes to some sort of conclusion so we can keep doing the work of the people.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.